This anime made me cry. A lot. About 2 weeks ago, I found myself sobbing in my room at 3 a.m. I'm sure many of you have had this same experience, where a series impacts you so deeply that no matter how many times you watch it, you still experience the same emotions. Whether it be a story that forces understanding onto different opposing characters, a journey of self-love after years upon years of trauma, or maybe it's one that brings you back to a reality that we were trying to escape. Whatever narrative you experienced, these stories linger in your mind for days, months, and sometimes even years. This is why I love writing, the ability to make us feel and understand ourselves just a bit more, the way it can make us vulnerable or happy on some of our darkest nights. Or sometimes it can be a theme so powerful that it rebuilds our core ideals and eventually becomes part of our own identity. And then another show will come along and do all the same. This was my initial reaction when I watched Takopi's Original Sin, a story with themes rooted in the cycles of abuse, understanding, and even humanity itself. Ever since that first watch, I've seen the series 2 more times, just trying to find the words that could do it justice, but just like last time, I was left speechless again and again. It made me want to understand how writers can impact other people's lives so dramatically, how they can create such profound stories that could bring you to tears in such a short amount of time. Takopi's Original Sin was able to accomplish this in only 6 episodes, and today I think I'm ready to dive into why this is the case. When I first watched the show, I was entranced by what it was able to accomplish in such a short amount of time. Its nuances of trauma, isolation, miscommunication are represented in its characters through subtlety. And I bring this up because one of the reasons that this series broke me lies at the heart of one of its core main themes: empathy. Not only is it our ability to understand another character, it's our main reason we can truly immerse ourselves in a series. Suddenly, we're at the mercy of another story, at the whim of every emotion a character feels. The way Takopi's Original Sin handles empathy with its own characters is crafted so beautifully in a way I've never seen before. It breathes life into its characters and makes them feel real. Experiencing this show for the first time was a roller coaster of emotions and showed me that great writing can be found in a small package. What's up, Internet? I'm Nikando, and today I want to talk about the series that made me feel things. The opening 20 minutes of this series provides a statement that lingers for the rest of it. Shizuka Kuze is going to kill herself. The series conveys this idea efficiently by showing us bluntly as well as through subtle inferences. Her mom's an escort, and she gets severely bullied at school, not to mention she's completely isolated from the rest of her class. The only thing that keeps her going is the dog that her dad left behind after he completely abandoned their family. Shizuka's life is that of hopelessness and loneliness. Takopi is an alien that crash lands from planet Happy onto Earth. At a glance and a glint of kindness, Takopi becomes infatuated with Shizuka. Through anime sci-fi magic, Takopi offers Shizuka a bunch of what he likes to call happy gadgets, but every time Takopi brings one of them up, Shizuka dismisses them completely. It's here that we realize that despite Takopi's mission to go around planets to spread joy and happiness, we discover that Takopi isn't ready to properly address the emotions of humanity. And it's this innocence and lack of knowledge that inadvertently gets Shizuka killed. Takopi breaks one of the rules from his home planet by giving a human a happy gadget unattended. From not being able to understand or empathize with Shizuka, he gives her a rope that can never break, and the rest is history. Or is it? This sets up the catalyst for the rest of the series, through a brilliant time travel plot executed by one of the earlier happy gadgets. Takopi vows not only to make Shizuka smile, but to also understand her. Slowly, Takopi and the audience start to learn more and more about her life as we relive the past few days. Shizuka's environment is a toxic one. She's berated and bullied by her entire class because of her surrounding circumstances. Specifically, Marina, a popular girl in the class, really starts to hone in on making her life a living hell because Shizuka's mother is intimate with her father. And as a result, she gets everyone to write all over her desk, deliberately vandalizes her stuff, and even goes as far to physically abuse her. What's truly disheartening about this whole situation is that all Shizuka has ever wanted was to be understood by the people around her. But yet Marina and most of the other kids in her class bully her because of what she wants. Even when Takopi tries to help her by making her look good in front of the class, nothing changes. It's only when we see Takopi talk to Shizuka at night we get to see why this is the case. She looks up at the stars, lost in some incomprehensible feeling that only she understands. Magic isn't real is a statement that she comes to believe after her wish upon a star fails her when her parents ended up getting divorced. Even if magic was real, if she was able to communicate her pain and loneliness, then it would be unnecessary anyways. And that's the main root of Shizuka's problem, that she believes that no matter what happens to her, whatever happy gadget comes her way, and whoever tries to talk to her, nothing would change. And a situation like this can be really similar to real life. There are many children around the world who have been neglected by those around them, that are stuck in the same circumstances for extended amounts of time. They start to develop a nihilistic mindset and start to believe that no one can pull them out of it no matter how far they have fallen. But this is such a sad and unhealthy way to look at life. If you don't take a reaching hand wanting to understand you, instead isolating yourself even more, it will spiral you down an even crueler path. This is exactly what happens when Naoki, another kid in Shizuka's class, tries to get to know her better. Operating so much on negative emotions, Shizuka is unable to communicate what she wants, spending most of her time with that fact. Broken people don't want to be helped, but rather understood, to have that person feel for them. But how can this be possible when people with an equal amount of trauma can't communicate all the same? It wouldn't be a lie to say that the series portrays Marina in a really bad light within the first couple episodes. However, the hints that show us that Marina's life is similar, if not worse than Shizuka's, still exist. As an act of justice in the moment, Takopi breaks the happy camera over Marina's head, brutally murdering her. A lot of people who watch this series wouldn't hesitate to say that Marina deserved this outcome, but I myself, while watching, couldn't perceive it or truly place the sole blame on her. From the little details we get from her home life, it's only logical to deem Marina's behavior as a projected one. I am of course not excusing any of Marina's actions, as they were beyond cruel and something no one should have to go through, but each child's home life plays a big part in how they act. Shizuka's parents were so apathetic that their dismissive mindset rubbed off on her. Naoki's mother gave him a perfectionist complex where he feels if he doesn't do everything perfectly, he's worthless. And Marina is no exception. Her parents are going through a rough spot with her father having an affair as well as her mother being physically abusive. If you don't raise your children surrounded with love and understanding, then they won't begin to understand the difference between right and wrong. And because our characters grew up in such extreme environments, it doesn't put the blame on the immature minds of these children. And if you were to go online after watching the series, you could probably find a multitude of people judging which characters are the psychopaths. So who is it? Is it the parents, or is it up to our main characters to change? I would say neither. The fact that we can't pinpoint a true perpetrator speaks to a much bigger problem we have as a society. If behavior in this case is genetically instilled, then wouldn't that make the parents victims too? That at some point the quote-unquote psychopaths would have been wronged by psychopaths of their own. This is the heart of the cycle of abuse, and I think it digs into one of the main motifs of the series, that there's no such thing as right or wrong for the show. They're just labels to set up a bigger message for the series. I think this is a good foundation to understand why Marina does what she does. For sure, it might be morally wrong in the moment, but overall Marina is just another victim of her upbringing. We begin to see what defines her when Takopi transforms into her to try and cover up the murder they just committed. The writer literally puts empathy to good use as Takopi relives her day-to-day life. Learning about Marina's past makes it completely clear why she acted the way she did. Watching her father break apart her family as her mother becomes more and more abusive was enough to stir up a bunch of pent-up insecurity to lash out at others. None of this was her fault, and it becomes painfully clear that Takopi killing her was a mistake. In the middle of all this chaos, we have Naoki Yazuma. Caught in the crossfire of this horrible situation, we at least get some insight to why he's helping Shizuka in the first place. When Azuma looks at Shizuka, the only thing that he can see in her is the resemblance of his mother. Growing up throughout elementary school and high school, Naoki had a perfectionist mindset instilled in his brain. He tried to be more like his brother, who was perfect in almost every regard. This, of course, had placed high expectations on him from his mother, who saw him to be equally as talented. Slowly, Naoki starts to fail over and over again, disappointing his mom each time. He might have not went through as harsh of an environment as Shizuka or Marina, but this shouldn't undermine the idea that it's still a toxic one. He is, above all else, relatable, and the series does a great job of showing us how he feels at any given moment. Naoki's story is a tragic one. Speaking from experience, it's a terrible thought to be able to try your best for something and for it to still not be enough. Given this thought, as well as consistent failure, it's not ridiculous to begin to believe that you're worthless or that your worth is codependent on what another person thinks. Naoki wonders if he'll ever be able to live up to that impossible level of expectation, or if he'll just fade away in the shadow of his brother. This is why he has an infatuation with Shizuka. Because he's so eager to please his mother's expectations, he associates that fundamental with Shizuka just because she looks like her. This clever parallel not only sets up a foreshadow for something that happens later in Marina's story, but it also ends up revealing that Shizuka has a much darker side to her. It's only when he's able to have an honest conversation with his brother Junya that he's able to overcome his mental barrier. Though Naoki is wary to tell his brother what he's thinking, he builds up the courage to tell him how he could never live up to anyone's expectations and is a failure compared to him. In which he responds, it's okay to admit when you can't do something, meaning that failure isn't something that should hold you down. This helps him overcome his internal complex as he realizes that Junya has flaws as well. By believing that his brother is his own unique person, Naoki can let go of that expectation that he was always trying to please, and in turn, he doesn't have to follow Shizuka anymore. When we see Shizuka about to go to Tokyo to see her father, she starts to question why Azuma left her behind. I think learning about the dynamic between these two can give us a lot of insight to who Shizuka really is. Although this might not be 100% true, all of our characters have traits passed down from their mothers. For Naoki, it's his hard-working demeanor. For Marina, it's her physical abusiveness, and for Shizuka, it could be her cold manipulation and self-serving mindset. We're meant to feel bad for Shizuka throughout the story for all the terrible things that have happened to her and how she was all alone. The only thing that prevented her from ending it was the small hope that her dog was still around. Her final thoughts is that she could find Chappie with her father. But just like Marina, there was always another side to her story. The scene of Shizuka meeting with her father is honestly so disheartening because we've been rooting for her this entire time, yet is shot down once again. It's at this moment where Shizuka lets out all of her frustrations. Even after all this time, Shizuka is still alone. Nothing ever changed for her no matter how much Takopi had tried to help her. And in an instant she breaks and tries to hurt Takopi, a completely innocent and kind being who had done nothing wrong except tried to help. Seeing Shizuka's state of being completely broken helps Takopi remember something extremely important. That Shizuka and Marina are one and the same, and Takopi had experienced similar events but in 2022, 6 years after our current events. So fast forward to a more present timeline, we see Takopi meet Marina in a very familiar scenario. Learning about the future shows us what would have happened if Takopi was never there in 2016. Had Takopi never given Shizuka the reconciliation ribbon, then her suicide attempt would have failed. When Takopi glances at Shizuka, he can no longer see her as the girl who showed kindness to him, but instead he sees the roles are reversed. During the time of 2022, Marina ends up enduring everything that she put Shizuka through. Despite trying to make the most of her situation with Takopi, Marina's mother ends up spiraling even further and ends up being way more abusive than the person we see in 2016. This leads to her reliving the same scenario that broke up her family back then, more or less with the same person she placed all the blame on in the first place. Takopi's original sin asks a very important question. What does happiness mean in a world of suffering? Should someone who has done terrible things deserve the karmic justice that is given to them? Marina in 2022 has arguably gone through way more than Shizuka, so it's when a whole other tragedy struck Marina we can begin to ask this question. I'm sure a lot of us throughout our life have wronged another person and regretted it when we knew what we did or said had impacted someone deeply. We may have not done stuff as bad as Marina, but slowly throughout the series, it's clear that all negative interactions beget more negative interactions. So if this is the cold, harsh reality of the way that we live, and people just repeat the patterns that they've suffered, it raises an even bigger inquiry. Is humanity even worth saving? All of our characters' points of views are grim reflections to what humanity has become, and that humanity is something that I and everyone else in this world has experienced to a certain degree. Some of our days are good and some of them are bad, but it's during our worst days where we can see any efforts towards connecting with others to be pointless. But I believe Takopi's original sin captures the essence of what it truly means to struggle with connection and how to eventually overcome it. The last episode of the series is truly one of the most cathartic things I have ever watched in fiction, and its final message was something that had broken me down crying. The final act of the series has Takopi trying to rebuild what he's broken. While he is a character of pure innocence and goodwill, his naivete was never enough to fix systematic cruelty. While sometimes his innocence blinds him from what's actually going on, he still has the correct inferences when something is taken too far. Despite being an airhead, Takopi at least has the right idea, that communication is the remedy to all ails. After watching the series in full, one might say Takopi ended up on the worst planet of them all. It makes you feel bad. Having to take the burden of everyone else's sins, having to pay for the emotions that aren't yours, trying to save people that might not be able to be saved, and then blaming yourself because humanity is just that fucked up. He bypasses his shortcomings with self-blame. If a desired outcome doesn't come to pass, as long as it's his fault, there's always something he can improve the next time. He believes Shizuka and Marina can connect, but lacks the knowledge of humanity to make it happen. But even most of humanity itself doesn't have this knowledge either. His attempts to help often made things worse, showing us that good intentions without empathy are dangerous. The idea of happiness that Takopi understands is inherently wrong in the eyes of humans. Takopi's belief from happiness takes a selfish undertone and stems from the idea of, as long as you're happy at all costs, it doesn't matter who pays the price. This is the original sin that he makes, and is the main reason for the events of the story. It's at the final episode of the series when Takopi finally understands what's been going wrong, that no amount of magic, gadgets, or fun can make someone happy, that this concept can never be imposed. Happiness is built through empathy, understanding, and through real change. But how do you do that when it's impossible for you to understand, when your experiences are completely different? When Takopi has a conversation with Naoki, he wonders why he wants to see Shizuka smile even after all the things she's done to hurt him. And the answer that Naoki gives him is that people can be both good and bad. After hearing this, he waits to see Shizuka one last time, but no matter what he says to her, Takopi still can't understand her. It's at this moment that Takopi realizes that there's only one more thing that he can do for her. He apologizes to Shizuka for never being able to truly empathize with her and puts all of his faith in the only person that could, Marina. As Takopi uses his life force to fix the broken camera, he says one final goodbye to Shizuka. As heart-wrenching as the scene is, it makes me happy to know that someone was able to see the kindness left in all three of our characters. Had Takopi not seen the good in them, then their cycles of abuse would have continued. Takopi ends up taking a religious motif of Jesus, a divine being who goes to Earth to spread peace and happiness, who ends up dying for the sins of humanity. Takopi ended up being the savior of our three characters and was the one who positively impacted their lives. The final scenes of Shizuka and Marina reconnecting after bonding over deja vu and shared experiences from Takopi is one of the most profound and humanizing scenes I have ever seen in an anime. The two can now properly communicate with one another and achieve real happiness. Marina, being Shizuka's friend, solves Shizuka's internal complex. She finally has someone who understands and someone who can empathize with her. It shows us that having one positive influence in your life can break that cycle of abuse, that we ourselves can be the light in someone else's story. Takopi's original sin broke me. It wasn't just a series, it's something truly beautiful to me, and one I will probably remember for a very long time. Its core messages on abuse, happiness, and kindness can be used as a blueprint to understanding someone just a little bit more. It shows us the ugly and good sides of humanity, that no amount of magic can change us, but rather the impact in the choices we make ourselves are truly the things that matter. If we can have empathy or understanding towards one another, then we could be the reason that someone's life is worth living. It's just as Takopi reiterates in his final moments, that communication can bring two people together and bring happiness.